AM Blues, Arizona's home for the worldwide leader in sport. It's ESPN 620. ASU football.
This is the State of the Sun Devils pregame show with Jeremy Schnell, Jesse Morrison, and Damon Allred.
Hello and welcome into another State of the Sun Devils pregame show alongside Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred. I'm Jeremy Schnell. We are live at Mountain America Stadium here on ESPN 620 and the Arizona Sports app. ASU taking on Houston. Houston is 6-1 and only one loss in the conference, just like ASU. ASU coming into this game at 5-2. Damon, big picture. What is this game mean for the conference standings?
Yeah, so there are 5 teams with 0 or 1 loss in conference entering today. And the only game that involves multiple of those teams is this one. And so whichever of ASU and Houston wins, they're going to feel a lot better about their Big 12 title chances. And whichever of them loses, you're not going to be eliminated necessarily, but you're going to start having the number 1 win out most of the way, and number 2, hope that a lot of things start to go your way. And with how some of these early games are transpiring, we're maybe starting to see at least one result that would positively impact ASU.
Yeah, I mean, let's take a look. BYU is down to Iowa State. That one is still a couple minutes left in the first half, but Iowa State is winning 24-10. That's the place ASU is going to have to go next week. Iowa State, no pushover. They are 5-2 as well, looking to go 6-2 and hand BYU their first loss of the season, David.
And I was pretty confident coming into this matchup for Iowa State that Iowa State was going to go 1-1 in these 2 weeks. You know, hosting BYU and then hosting ASU the next week. I felt good about, you probably win one of those, but not the other. And so if they're going to win this one, obviously that would set up well for ASU. The made-up thing that I made up tracks.
Oklahoma State is at Texas Tech. Man, what a terrible place to have to play after what ASU did to Texas Tech last weekend. The heartbreaking lead for Texas Tech. Texas Tech up 13-0 early in that one. It's just in the first quarter. Yeah, we're not surprised about that one. Hammond is playing once again at quarterback. Baylor is to Cincinnati in the second quarter, 14-0. That's an expected result, but Baylor, again, it gave ASU some trouble down there when ASU went to Texas to play against Baylor in Waco. So, don't be surprised if they make a comeback there and make it close. But the game earlier today that everyone was talking about, obviously, was Kansas State and Kansas. The farm, what do they call it? No,
Sunflower Showdown.
Yeah, 42-17, Kansas State with Avery Johnson at the helm. Jesse, love Avery Johnson so much.
He had some nice throws.
Yeah, I mean, they won 42-17, so I mean, I can't really complain about them.
It's interesting because Kansas has looked good in every game that they played in this season, and they get smoked by Kansas State in this one. But hey, let's get to the game at hand. ASU is going to be missing a few key players, especially Jordan Tyson. This game is going to come down to a few different things. But with Jordan Tyson out, what ASU's offense is going to do is it's going to be huge in this one, David.
Yeah, I'm really putting the onus on Sam Levitt for, all sorts of reasons in this one, just because we've seen him start to come around on these split-second reads right after the snap and things like that, and he has been, getting better at them in practice as well, but without his favorite target, where he knows 100% without a shot where that guy's going to be on each second of every play, it feels like that's obviously going to be a big change that you're going to have to make in terms of the approach. I'm looking at kind of returning to that more 12, 13 personnel that they were looking on more in the start of the season. Just you have so much depth at tight ends. Obviously, them are listed here on this injury report, but that's a position where you can kind of get a lot out of, given the other injuries.
I think the big in this game for sure is Malik Brown. I mean, this has to be a game where you really pound the rock if you're ASU. We've seen flashes from these other past guys on this team this year. You've got the Derek Eusebio game. Basically, you've got the Jaron Hamilton game last week. But that's one game that we've seen. Malik Brown has been a consistent presence this year in the running game. So I think you give him a lot of carries, and that's kind of where you're going to have to pick up the slack with Tyson being out.
We haven't seen the running back screen that often. happen, and that's something I think ASU should consider, especially with Malik Brown, who came into this season and last season as well as, a kind of a hybrid player that can really catch the ball very well. He played a little bit of wide receiver when he was at USC. Can we expect ASU to do some of that today? Get him out in space? Obviously in the running game pitch, like they did on the touchdown to win the game last week, but in specifically the pass game.
Yeah, it felt like they were really trying to get that going last week against Texas Tech, but there were two instances where the swing pass was there to really go out, and Sam Levitt just missed it for one reason or another. Obviously we don't know all the things that go into each play, of what it's supposed to be or what the timing is, things like that. But there were a couple instances where you could have had that, and it just didn't come up. And the same way that we look at the red zone offense last week, like if you hit on some of those plays, like we've seen Malik Brown break those long touchdowns. And so it has to be something that you're connecting on more often. And another thing that I was talking to you guys throughout the week about is just the amount of help that you have when you go into these practices knowing what the situation is going to be. Jordan Tyson wasn't practicing either of those because Sam Levitt was just working on getting those other guys involved and working on that connection with those other guys. And Zechariah Sample is another guy that we can get into. He was tweeting a little bit, and I'm expecting kind of a big opportunity for him, just given injuries and the connection that he does have with Levitt. He was at the youth camp that Levitt and Tyson put on earlier in the spring, so I think that kind of stuff goes a long way.
I'm a little bit worried about the red zone because, other than that touchdown at the end of the game last week, we haven't really seen Malik Brown be very successful in the red zone, and Jordan Tyson has been their red zone offense. Like, he has been able to make things happen in the red zone. So I really want to see them get Shimon Mateer involved in the red zone. I think getting your tight end involved down there is huge for any team, and what better day to do that than when you're missing your top red zone threat.
It's going to be, like we said it last week, it was difficult to run the ball last week for ASU. They broke some runs, obviously, but specifically with the offensive linemen that they are missing, it's going to be difficult. So that short passing game again, guys, like we've been saying it for weeks and weeks. We saw it last week work out pretty well, and obviously they had the big plays from Jared Hamilton, the fourth down play to Tyson that broke for over 50 yards. Is that something we can expect? Or should the offensive line be able to deal with Houston defensive line that is seemingly okay? They're not a bad defensive line. They've gotten some sacks this season. They've gotten some tackles for loss. They've forced some fumbles. Can ASU's offensive line handle their defensive line today?
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the forced fumbles, 11 on the year, but only 2 recovered. We've seen ASU be a team this year that will let them go a little bit, but like Kenny Dillingham was talking about post-game last week, their ability to consistently fall on those and prevent them from becoming worse than they are, I think has been a huge part for this offense. Obviously, there was a big long drive last week where they fumbled twice and landed on it both times. And, things like that can really swing a game for you. ASU has seemed to be winning margins a lot this year, other than, like, of course, we talked about red zone offense.
Yeah, what I noticed out of this Houston defensive line is they're able to get pressure. They're not always able to finish on
Little last year ASU.
Yeah, a little last year ASU, so they can't necessarily get those sacks. I mean, they do at times, but there's times when they can't finish. Overall, just not a very good tackling team, which we'll get into in the next segment. But I think ASU might have found something at the offensive line last week, just with the Makua play, sliding in there at center. I think he might have been from what Kenny said after the game on last week. I mean, I think he might have been the guy that Sam wanted all along, and I think having him out there may have unlocked something for this team just overall in general.
Would you expect to see him again today at center?
Yeah, that was how the reps are going this week. I would expect to see true freshman Kai Stewart also out there. He's still getting a lot of reps. I say it every time we talk about him, but 6'5" and 360 pounds, you just don't see that a lot as a true freshman. And I think he's athletic enough to handle a lot of snaps so early on in his college career. And, just if this little core of this offensive line can come together when it was such a problem early on in the season for different reasons, I think that could be, arguably one of the biggest improvements made in this offense so far this season.
Yeah, let's talk about the defense a little bit. ASU with a couple of guys that are huge for the defense that are going to be questionable today. Jordan Crook, Ghost Rouser, Boogie Wilson, Prince Dorba. That's the big one. He went out with an injury last week, guys.
Was doubtful throughout the week too.
Yeah, so for him to be upgraded to questionable, I mean, that gives some hope that he's going to play today.
Huge, yeah. I mean, he's been one of their, I'm not going to say he's been their best defensive player because there's been so many guys up for best defensive player on ASU over the past few weeks, but obviously you saw what he did against TCU.
He won them the TCU
game.
He
basically won them the TCU game, and you saw him at doubtful, and doubtful usually means out, and questionable, you're thinking he's tracking the play more, because like football questionable and basketball questionable are different. So I think I would say that I would, my guess is that he's going to play, and that's going to be huge for ASU, even if it's only in like a limited role.
Yeah, and from seeing what I did at practice this week too, I would expect the Crooks and the Rousers and the Boogie to all play. Maybe Boogie's the one with the least chance of those three, but just as far as Kenny talked about, guys who can afford to miss rep practice and still play on game day because of, the other things that they've done. I think Crook and Rouser will fall much more into that category than a guy like Wilson. And then Dorba, of course, he's been in the system for all the years that Brian Ward has been now too. So yeah.
As we're talking right before we go to break, guys, BYU has scored, so they're only down by 7 with just 25 seconds left in the first half. So
definitely a big game to monitor if you're an ASU fan.
We'll keep an eye on that one. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to take a look at this Houston offense. What's ASU's defense going against today? That's next on the State of the Sun Devils pregame show, live from America Stadium.
Now, what to do with your unwanted bills? Maybe turn them into paper airplanes headed to CN.
Yeah, Nathan?
Decide the best 5G network has you covered with the
Nathan.
most ways to save on.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, nope, we don't play breaks locally here. They're played at the station, so that was an issue he was working out there.
Gotcha.
You guys are fine. Hey, are you still hearing anything like kind of sounding like it's breaking up on your end?
Yeah, mine sounds fine.
It just
State of the Sun Devils pregame show with Jeremy Schnell, Jesse Morrison, and Damon Allred.
All right, welcome back inside Mountain America Stadium alongside Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred. I'm Jeremy Schnell. Taking you up to the Sun Devil Tailgate Show with Jeff Moon and Company. That'll be next here on ESPN 620, the Arizona Sports app. And that will take you right in to this football game of Houston in town taking on ASU. Lovely music here, guys.
Still fun, in the second year of the Big 12 to see these new teams coming in here. Like I've not seen a game where Houston's played or so.
That's crazy. Right?
Last week, Texas Tech. I mean, some people that have been around ASU saw them play here, back in the day. But it's cool. It's cool to see these new opponents. I personally liked the move to the Big 12. I think it's been beneficial to ASU.
Absolutely. I mean, it's beneficial, especially after what they did
last
last
title
season.
in their first year. That's beneficial.
Let's talk about this Houston. You want to do offense or defense first?
Let's do offense.
Let's do offense. All right. Connor Wigman.
Wigman. There you go.
I got it. Connor Wigman. He's their quarterback. His only turnover of the ball twice this season. Susceptible to the sack though. So again, big deal if Prince Dorva plays in this game. But specifically, their running game with Dean Connors, who looks like Cam Scottaboo out there, by the way.
44.
Yeah. It's weird watching a guy like that run, and he does break some tackles here and there. But it's really Amari Thomas. Like, he has been great this season at the wide receiver position. Over 500 yards, 4 touchdowns, big play ability. Only 27 catches and over 500 yards. That's really difficult to meet, Keith Abney's job to keep him in check today.
Yeah, I mean, Keith Abney at this point has become arguably, as Jesse alluded to earlier, a lot of guys in contention for ASU's best defender. Keith Abney's right there with everybody as far as making that claim. Yeah, I mean, Amari Thomas, he presents a similar build to what Keith Abney goes against in practice as far as that 6-foot frame, similar to Tyson a little bit. And I've seen personally just how much Keith Abney gets up for biggest matchups that he gets, and so it's a really cool opportunity for him to prove that he's continuing to take that next step and put himself in conversations for the NFL draft and things like that.
What I'm really looking at here is Dean Connors, who Jeremy mentioned. When I watched the tape of Houston, he just stood out to me, breaking tackles. He's fast. He caught the ball in space and had a big catch against U of A last week. He's a tough runner. He's low center of gravity kind of guy. A little bit
contact balance.
Contact balance for sure. And yeah, he's got 538 yards this year, 4 touchdowns on the ground. Look at his receiving stats: 113 catches and a touchdown. But yeah, I mean, I think he's 113 yards and a touchdown. I meant to say that. But yeah, he's looked really good for them this season. And I think that he's the guy to stop for Houston. But I mean, they have other guys too, not just Amari Thomas and
Tanner Koziel.
Yeah, Tanner Koziel
leading the team in catches.
Yeah, he might be one of the best tight ends in the entire country. He's a transfer from Ball State, where last year he had 94 catches and 8 touchdowns. When do you see that from a college tight end?
He's the leading receiver in terms of receptions on this Houston team this year. Something that ASU fans have been pining for is to get the tight end involved, get Mateer involved a little bit more. So Houston does that really well with their tight end, and it's going to be a test, especially if ASU has some of their linebackers missing today. We already know they're missing Cyrus Fiaseu.
Tate Romney as well.
Tate Romney's going to be out. And
could be a big game for Martell Hughes.
Yeah, I mean, Jordan, and we've seen him step up time and time again with the interception that he got last week, I believe. And, if they're missing Jordan Crook this week, that's going to be big, specifically when they're covering one of the best tight ends in the Big 12 or even in the nation.
And especially when you consider that Houston is as much of a downhill rushing attack as they are, too. Linebackers are a lot of the times the ones that are plugging up those holes. And so, obviously, you would like to have Jordan Crook and Keyshawn Elliott both out there together. So, both guys that are capable of playing at all conference levels. But, I mean, if you're going to lose 2 of the guys in your 2 deep the way it has for this game, if you say Romney, I mean, as good a guy to come up and replace him in Martell Hughes, and then might see some Crew Jackson as well, number 43. So,
yeah, I do think we need to not gloss over the Wigman here. I think he
Former
looks
5-star.
Yeah, he looks like he looks like up there with the best quarterback ASU has faced this year. He has got a great pocket presence, and he's kind of a unit when he runs the ball. So, like, he'll take these quarterback draws and just run it straight, and he's tough to bring down. And I think
that's something ASU struggled with against
Utah.
Yeah, so I think that overall, I think this offense is going to be a big challenge for this ASU defense, maybe even a little bit more surprisingly than last week against Cincinnati, against Texas Tech. Cincinnati's currently on the TV, so I got a little bit distracted there. But no, I mean, I think that, I think this offense might be a little bit more toward what we saw to Utah. So I'm a little bit more concerned about this one compared to the Texas Tech offense last week.
I really want to hit more on the ASU secondary too and their roles in the game, because as we know, Xavier Alfred's been out. Boogie Wilson could be out. That could leave you down to your third safety at that spot, which I think would be Montana Warren in this case, and you would still have the rest of that group.
Montana's been really good.
He's been incredible.
Snaps that he's got, and also Boogie Wilson's been a revelation.
Mm-hmm.
Like to step up into that position. And if they're missing him today, I don't expect too big of a drop-off because of just how deep that safety room is.
Yeah, and Montana Warren has really picked up on that physicality that came up after the loss to Utah. He laid out Raleek Brown pretty good in one of the team drives this week, and Raleek looked a little bit shocked at first. Whoa, I wasn't really expecting that in practice, but that's the kind of guy Montana Warren is. He notoriously broke his collarbone on a hit at Camp T once upon a time, and so it's these guys that are continuing to set the tone on the back end. You talk about the way Keith Abney got Will Hammond down in one of the first plays of the game last week to prevent a run in open space. I just think that these guys have done such a good job of setting the tone of physicality.
Jesse, let's talk about this defense for a second by Houston, because specifically they force fumbles. We talked about that in the last segment. 11 forced fumbles. Only
good amount of interceptions.
Only have recovered 2. Yeah, how many interceptions, Dave?
I believe 6.
6 interceptions. But it's also the sack. They get to the quarterback. Like Jesse said, they don't necessarily always finish it, but it's Brandon.
It's a group effort, too. Not any one guy has more than 3, I believe.
Brandon Mack is the guy who leads the team with 3 sacks this season.
A bunch of guys with 2.5 as well.
He's forced the fumble, and then Jalen Gardner, he has 2 sacks and 2 forced fumbles as well. So those 2 guys you're going to have to look out for. But Jesse, something that me and you noticed on tape, is the tackling by Houston. Not very good. They don't always wrap up. So if ASU can stay on their feet today, break some tackles, or even just make some moves in the open field, that's going to be tough for Houston to kind of gather ASU in this one.
Yeah, when I was watching this defense for Houston, I saw a defense as what the kids say is a little soft. This defense.
Did the kids say that?
I think the kids
say that. The defense.
The kids may have said that years ago.
I don't know, maybe. But yeah, the defense is a little bit suspect for Houston. I think that they have a big struggle tackling, and the secondary to me just didn't impress me. I saw them getting beat a lot against UFA, so I think that this defense is definitely a weakness for Houston.
This is a game ASU's offense should handle. It should look better. It should, even without Jordan Tyson, they should be able to go and play against this defense and make sure that they get points on the board for them. With that being said, I'm going to start with my prediction, guys. I'm picking ASU to win this one, say 28-17. ASU wins this one by a lead.
I'm going to go very close and say 27-14. I've said all week that it just is going to take pretty comparable effort to what you brought last week against Texas Tech, and that starts with both lines. If those 2 units can do that, I think you're set up for success today.
All right. I think that without Jordan Tyson, I just don't think that they're going to be able to get it done today. I think that the offense for Houston poses a big threat to the ASU defense in the way they play. So I'm going to say that Houston wins this one 31-24.
It's going to be a huge game. It could be an elimination game today. If he loses, they need a lot of stuff to happen in order to make it to the Big 12 championship game. That's going to do it for this edition of the State of the Sun Devils pregame show. Thank you so much for listening and watching. You can find us on all forms of social media at AZ Sports Devils. Jesse Morrison and Damon Allred. I'm Jeremy Schnell. The State of the Sun Devils pregame, the tailgate show is up next here on Arizona and ESPN 6 Plus.